Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Condemned Criminal Origins. Hard difficulty, no taser, no damage. This is going to be a walkthrough of only the combat sequences, and if you know anything about this phenomenal game by Monolith, you will know that there is a lot of environmental navigation, a lot of atmosphere, a lot of tension, a lot of decent characterization and story development, and a decent amount of puzzles too, which involve you doing forensic things that we would go on to see in several other games as well. But this will only be the moments of conflict where damage can be received, and outside of some obviously dodgy sequences where you might be able to take a hit but it's not necessarily from anything crazy, most of that will be skirted out in favour of the fighting, the gauntlets, and just the absolutely brutal combat that is Condemned's bread and butter. This is the first mission of the game. We start it out with our pistol, which we'll be losing coming up, and you're getting introduced to the standard enemy type here, which is the basic addicts. There are a lot of names for the enemies in this game, but I can't find any confirmation as to which retains to which, so I'm not going to be calling them anything other than just standard enemies. I wish I could find the names, guys. It makes the guide a lot more interesting for me to make, a lot more concise and detailed, but I've got the assets for them. I can look into the game files and see them, but the names elude me. But this is the first real engagement of the game, taking on two enemies at once. The first guy comes through the drywall, the other guy comes from behind you, and you're going to be using your melee weapon and your parries to essentially do your best to kick some ass. And Condemned is a pretty interesting game when it comes to just beating it as a standard walkthrough. The game in itself enables you to save anywhere, so there are checkpoints and there are quick saves, and I'm going to be saving before engagements and saving after engagements, and this is a segmented no damage run. You could save feasibly after every fight if you wanted to, but I don't think that would be as fun as kind of trying to adhere to what is most enjoyable to you. And the no taser restriction comes from the fact that I think that the taser itself kind of turns off the need to learn the game, and it makes the game a lot less fun in my opinion. Most people play Condemned by tasing one enemy, killing him, waiting for the taser to come back and then engaging the next one. And as much as that's effective and it'll get you through the game if you just want to beat it, it doesn't really showcase what this game does so superbly, which is this wonderful AI and these wonderfully just tense and frenetic fights that you get into with these characters on screen. Additionally, guys, I'm going to try to showcase as many weapons as I can. I'm going to be picking up a lot of stuff and doing my best to kill people with it, even if it's suboptimal, even if you shouldn't be doing it, and I will warn you accordingly. And then we get onto the subject of the guns. So you can find guns in Condemned, and the guns are incredibly powerful. I think this game does perhaps one of the best jobs of making you respect and fear guns, because when you get hit by them, it is a huge impact on the screen, and it is quite shocking, and it's super visceral. I really like that. And then when you use them yourself, they're really strong too. So guns are incredibly powerful. And if you watch the speedrun for this game, you'll see the speedrunners bringing guns into almost every encounter and just completely decimating it. And that's cool if you want to do it that way, that's awesome. It's obviously the fastest method. But I want to get in there, I want to get dirty, I want to be an absolute barbarian. And I am going to beat the living shit out of this entire game in a nice, concise 55-minute video. So welcome to the walkthrough, guys. Get comfortable, get your snacks. And let's continue on through Condemned as we move into the second chapter here. So once you move into that area, it spawns two enemies behind you, these guys here. And these dudes have actually got a name if you look into the enemy files. They don't have an alias, like the Matchmaker and the Torturer, but they are named enemies. And there's something unique that you can discover on that sequence just then. When an enemy is doing any kind of movement traversal, so if they climb a fence or they climb through a window, any kind of mantle situation, whatever you hit them with will kill them in one hit. You can use this to your advantage to deal incredible damage. I, for the most, am going to use it occasionally, but I'm also going to avoid it so I can showcase more of the fighting. But the fighting is quite simple. The cool part about Condemned is that as much as the combat is just parry and block and movement, Look at that, he feinted me 3 times, what a beast. The AI in this game is superb, by the way, too. It is absolutely phenomenal. But the cadence of the fighting is you can swing your weapon with your attack button. If you press left, right, down, or forward as you swing, you will do a different attack. There are command normals in this. And there are certain moves that are objectively better than other moves that you want to keep your eye out for. And then if you press parry, you will do a defensive maneuver that stops you from taking damage. And the parry in this game is not a block. You don't hold it and it makes you safe. You press it and your character will block for a decent amount of time and then he'll stop. And because there's just a small window for the block to happen, you can't spam it, you have to press it intentionally. And depending on what weapon you use, be it the faster weapons or the slower weapons, will dictate how difficult and how easy that block window is. Fast weapons have the most versatile and durable block window and are very good. Slow weapons have a much more laboured and difficult block window, but it still exists. And the trade-off there, of course, is damage, depending on what you want to do. This moment right here is an investigative moment that enables you to look for a collectible, but I'm not going to be picking up the collectibles, guys, because this is just combat. This is no damage. This is getting in there, beating people up. And we're taking on this foe here with the 2x4. We're beating him up with a mannequin arm, which is a pretty interesting weapon. And be very careful when you disarm enemies. Disarming enemies in Condemned makes them more dangerous because it gives them unlocks to this really, really fast grab. And when they grab you, it front loads the damage. So the moment you get grabbed, it starts hurting you. Never, ever, ever sleep on an enemy that does not have a weapon. Because the grab is unbelievable and you do not want it to happen. It's really, really bad news. But combat-wise, you also have access to a kick. And the kick is quite unique, because it's the fastest move you have, but it has the longest recovery. So there are certain situations where you try to use the kick and you'll just get hit. You'll just get put into a moment where you can't do much. But every so often, if you use the kick, you can use it as a counter hit to certain moves, and it will give you a window to recover in time. And I don't really know the purpose of the kick other than finishing enemies off really quickly when they're on the ground like this instead of doing an animation. Or just, adding it into your repertoire and trading hits because they will inevitably hit you afterwards. But there are a few moments where the kick can come in really handy. The 2 moments I would recommend using the kick: when an enemy does a jump attack, if you kick that, the recovery on it usually is so high when you hit them that they cannot hit you before you recover. And then additionally, when an enemy goes up against the side of a wall and tries to ambush you, you can see them kind of peeking out a little bit. When they attack, if you kick them, you will interrupt them almost 100% and they cannot seemingly do anything about it quick enough before you can recover. And then the final use for the kick, which is unconfirmed, but I think it's how it works. I don't think the enemies can counter the kick in the same conventional way they can with the melee weapon. And this is something that you'll come across later on in the game when you come across the skinnier enemy that dies in one kick. That enemy, if you go to smack it with anything, can parry you and immediately start attacking. But if you kick them, they will always eat the kick if it hits. The one problem is the kick has kind of shitty detection. It's very close ranged and it tends to whiff. So if you get into a bad situation because you whiffed a kick, I'm absolutely with you, brother. It happens to the best of us, And here is the first difficult encounter of the game. So after we kill this dude, there's a guy with a shotgun that's going to rock up. And you need to count off 5 shots. After 5 shots, he has to reload, and that's your opportunity to attack him. And just then, there was a quick save, so if it wasn't actually... Oh, that wasn't even 5 shots, I just got Cavalier. Maybe you just managed to thumb one in and fire it off, but... Counting shots is really important in this game. And additionally, you need to know, guys, that when you're attacking an enemy, when they have a gun, they will try to shoot you. Their accuracy is compromised, but alas, it's a real legitimate threat. But if you carry the shotgun into the encounter with SKX, you can dump him twice, and that's the end of that pseudo-boss fight. But moving forward into the subway, and a warning for people who are sensitive to flashing lights, there's a sequence coming up where the strobing actually started to affect me. And I'm not bothered by lights at all. But it's really annoying. So I try my best not to look at it at all while it's happening. Oh, this guy has a gun too. This is 100% luck right now. Whenever anyone has a weapon, not getting shot is up to them, not really up to you. And of course you can tase them for guaranteed safety, and you can shoot them yourself. But because I'm going to be avoiding guns, and I'm going to be never tasing, I don't really have that option. But here we go with this dude. We've got the revolver here, the first time you'll see that. and then I'll dump it out for something else as we pick up the electrical conduit and we move forward. This game is a game that I'm not going to have too much time to talk about because of how concise this walkthrough is. But I adore Condemned, guys. This was one of the launch titles for the 360, and I came from Fear, and I really enjoyed what Monolith did with that game. So playing this game was a no-brainer, and I think that this is one of the greatest horror games nobody talks about, because the tension here and the complete and utter reliance on audio and actual building atmosphere instead of jump scares is second to none. I think it is a masterpiece for that. This is the strobing, by the way, so be careful, guys. I'm going to push into this cabin. That's where the grab just then. He tried to grab me. In this cabin, you can get them really claustrophobic and start whooping on them. And one of the best things about Condemned is the enemies attack each other. So whenever you are surrounded by enemies, it seems like it might not be very fair, but it turns out it's actually really fair because everyone's hitting each other. And when everyone's hitting each other, it's a free-for-all. And you can use that to your advantage, and it leads to some really entertaining moments. You can hear somebody there as well as we move forward. But the PC port is kind of a mixed bag. It's not terrible. You can get it to run at decently high frame rates, but it will affect both collision and your ability to navigate the geometry. So you want to be just aware of that. There's a few sequences in the game where you have to drop the frame rate down to 60 FPS or you can't progress because certain triggering doesn't work. I had a problem in the library with Rosa not triggering a door. I also had problems in the Apple Orchard house where you have to open that door in the attic. And then you fight the Dark Presence dude, and it never opened, so be careful if you play it on 200 frame rate like I'm doing or above, because it leads to weird stuff. But the biggest thing I have to mention, guys, is the collision. So whenever you go near anything that is on a higher vertical plane than you go into the slowest mobility the game has to offer, and it's almost like you're fighting it to move. Oh, this is mandatory damage. See this? This is a cutscene and it does hurt you. So I left this in to show you some context. You can't avoid this. Unless you use a trainer to give you infinite life and it never goes down, this is a cutscene that hurts you, and it's not player controlled, so it doesn't void the run, but it's a little bit frustrating that happens, because later on, Ethan gets attacked again, and it doesn't hurt his HP, but this one does, and I honestly don't really know why that is. This is also one of the few fights in the game where you fight a woman, and she's already got her ass beat over there, so we didn't really get a chance to do much to her, but she was here until she got decked. So equal opportunity violence in the streets of Metro City. And this guy's hiding. See this? The AI loves to hide. Look how clever this is. Really cool. Hopefully I'll be able to show you the kick, but he's not doing it. But yeah, guys, anytime where there's any kind of geometry, and this is the same thing that happened in Mirror's Edge. If you remember on my Mirror's Edge walkthrough when I couldn't walk across the pipe, and I couldn't walk across those little beams on the ground, those pieces of wood, that timber, same concept. So there's a fight that comes up on the second to final level of the game. Sorry, it's the final level of the game. It's the processing plant. And it involves a bunch of these burnt dudes in like a greenhouse. And there's a ton of planks on the ground and a couple of steps. And my movement is so bad. It's really hard. And it's just because the movement is deliberately slow in this game. And the normal movement speed, once you get used to it, is perfect. There's no moment in this game where you need to move faster. It's a bit frustrating at first because it is so slow. But once you get used to it, for combat, the movement speed is perfect. Absolutely perfect. And this enemy dies in one kick, this little zombie guy. It is a new enemy type, so make sure to kick them. But later on, they introduce a normal version of this guy that looks the same, and he takes more than one kick. And if you kick him, he'll punch you in the face. So be really careful with the Jabata that's coming up. But this is we're moving through the underground again, the tunnels here, and there's some really good atmosphere going on, and we're using a steam pipe, which is a really cool weapon. Personally, for me, guys, I adore the fast weapons. The slow weapons are cool, and they hit hard, and they've got the most overpowered move in the game if you attack with the left direction held. But I just don't find them to be that enjoyable. So you'll notice when I pick up a fire axe, even though it's the most powerful weapon in the game, I will often swap it out for something like a pipe. Because this is what really appeals to me. Getting in here and doing the slugfest, and just whooping on dudes and hitting them. But the standard rhythm of combat in Condemned is quite dynamic. The enemies have got a lot of patterns. And the developers mentioned that they they were inspired by fighting games in a lot of the mechanics in this series, which I think is really, really cool. And they cite Third Strike as a big reference, which, if you know what Third Strike is, you'll obviously know why that's so cool. Oh, and who we have, a unique guy, this man here. This is one of the bigger class enemies with a big weapon. He moves like a gorilla, this dude. He's crazy. He's wearing those Riddick goggles, but I just whooped the shit out of him by caving his skull in. This game is so awesome, guys. I love it. But the combat, because the enemies have got so many patterns, you're going to have to learn a few things before you can really get into the swing of it. A lot of walkthroughs will tell you to do a form of an option select where when you attack, always parry afterwards. But if you do that, certain enemies will take advantage of you, so you want to be really careful. And the thing with it is when you hit an enemy, they do certain things. Sometimes they will move, they'll get stunned, flinch a little bit, and then do a recovery swing. That's the kick when they try to ambush you, see it? And this guy is the dude that takes a kick. So he looks like those other zombies, but he's not. He's a normal addict, and he takes a big old beating, so be very careful. But you'll see, I hit him there, he gets stunned, and then he comes back with a swing, doesn't he? Big looping swing. Then we knock him down, and then we've got this lady with the wood here. Sometimes when you hit them, they will just get stunned, and that's your opportunity to go in and hit them. Like right now, she's just stunned, and then she's down on her knees for the execution. Sometimes when you hit them, they'll do a really quick counter-attack afterwards. You know, there's a handful of different reactions when you attack people. So once you get used to the game, that was interrupting the jump attack, see that? And then you get to recover in time, and then you can hit with the pipe. But one of the most powerful things you can do in this game is move backwards. Always try to get just out of their range so that you can get back in there and do damage. The problem lies in, if you play this game on a slightly higher FOV, or just in general, some of the hits are way more rangy than they appear. You will get hit by things that should never touch you, and you will not get hit by things that should have touched you. And I have evidence of both happening in this run. And it's really inconsistent and spotty, so be very careful. But this engine room here has two of these big dudes, and he's really good at blocking with a shovel, this guy. That's a 2 attack, that's another 2 attack, we can bait him after this. And that right just there means I can attack again because he's stunned. So there's the 1 attack. There's the parry, there's his big hit, second hit, now we can get the counter, but I whiff. And then I kick him a little bit, and he's stunned, so I can whiff again. And then he goes for a big one, but doesn't get it. Parries me again, because he's a beast. So I did some research into hard difficulty to try and find the damage numbers and the stats and everything, so I could tell you guys, but I couldn't find too much. I found some information on GameFAQs. That's a trap, by the way, so don't fall for that. This fight's really hard as well. There is 2 guys with guns here. This guy here, and a guy on the balcony. I didn't want to do this with guns, guys. I wanted to just kill this dude, because he kept ruining these fights. And the best thing I could do was grab both the guns, shoot the shit out of that guy, and then try and attack what was left. But in an ideal world, I would have loved to have been able to just get rid of those 2 guys really quickly, or even disarm them, and then fight the rest of this room. If I could mod the difficulty on this port, it would be amazing. I would make some super sick fights. Can you imagine adding enemies and changing the enemy counts? I'd make a super brutal mode where you hit like a truck, but you get hit like a truck too. That would be so sick. I have so many ideas for Condemned, boys and girls, but I just don't have the time to share them because this video is too short, unfortunately. But when I was looking into hard, it seems that they do not get any more damage in. They don't actually do more damage to you, but their accuracy is better. So they hit you in the head more, and when they hit you in the head, they get a crit. And you can get killed in 1 hit in this game from full HP if they hit you in the head with the right weapon. So what this leads to, guys, is the enemies, I believe, are more aggressive. They're a little bit more savvy when it comes to parrying, and because they're more accurate, they crit you a lot more often, giving the illusion that they do more damage, but they don't. And then additionally, you'll notice that when you attack people in this game, it's not really consistent in how many hits somebody takes. And this is because of the headshot multiplier. Sometimes you hit forearms, sometimes you hit shoulders, sometimes they're just beefy, but there are times when you have to hit people 7 and 8 times, 9 times with a weapon, and other times it's only 5 or 6, and I've honestly not been able to really tell why that is, other than sometimes you're hitting crits and sometimes you're not. And it's one of those things I'd love to get hard data on, but in my 45 seconds worth of Google searches, I was unable to do so. But moving swiftly on here. Did you see the range on that pipe just then? I parried there out of safety. I really should not have had to, because that dude was nowhere near me, and he got a free hit. But we pick up the 2x4, we climb the ladder. This game completely commits to the first-person perspective, so you'll notice that we never pull away. The ladder climbing, all the animations are all first-person. Like, look at that. That guy must have been weak, though, right? I think that was a crit, and I think he was weak. I love wrenching weapons out of the environment, too. There's so many facets of this game that just I'm in complete love with. It blows my mind that we didn't get this either remastered or at least some attention brought back to it with a sequel of some sort. That guy has a gun, so that's why I picked mine up, if you're wondering. But moving on to the... Is this the Burn... It's like the Burnside Mall, isn't it? Or Bart's department store or something like that. This is really interesting, this. It has this Christmas song playing in the background, and all the enemies in this level pretty much pretend to be mannequins. It's really creepy. And they're wearing Christmas hats, which is quite festive. I love this level. This level is just atmosphere, and it's dripping with flair. There's also a unique weapon here, a handrail, which is the one you saw me use on the train in that on-rails sequence. But be careful of these guys, they're using rebar. The rebar with the concrete on it is one of the most damaging weapons in the game. That was the kick interrupting the charge, see that? And then we crit him, and now we can execute him. There are 4 executions in Condemned. All of them are kind of interesting, but one of them doesn't sound right. The one where you smash them into the ground doesn't have an impact noise, and it makes it sound really shitty. And it's a bit of a shame, truth be told. Because I was really... Look at that, that was cheeky. I did not see him, guys. That guy was just straight up hiding, and I beat his ass for it, so eat my dick. But do you see the noise on that headbutt? It's crunchy. It's really crunchy. Another female enemy here. The punch is crunchy. The neck breaker is phenomenal. It's such a wonderful sound. It's so just brutal and destructive. It sounds devastating when you neck break. I hope I neck break this guy so you can hear it. No, I'm going to punch him. But even that, really, really cool, right? And do not hit the padlock on that door with a sledgehammer before you deal with this dude. If you do, he'll hit you from behind and you'll have to turn around and he'll do any attack and it turns it into a crazy fighting game mix-up. So be very careful on this sequence. And I want to apologise, guys, if you're stumbling on this video and you're lost in Condemned, and it is a linear game and it is pretty simple finding out where to go, but you can get lost because it does look very similar. And you come to my walkthrough and my walkthrough doesn't help you because I'm just showing the fighting. I am sorry that I wasted your time. There are plenty of walkthroughs for this game with no editing at all online, and you'll be able to get those. But this is purely to show you, essentially, me beating the living shit out of the whole game. This is Ethan from Condemned 2 coming back to Condemned 1 and whooping some ass. And I disarmed that guy just then. I don't know why that happens. I wonder if it's if you hit them in the hand. That would be so sick if that's what that was, but I can't confirm if it is. And see here, guys, when I go down these steps, look at my movement. See how my character moves when I go down just a few steps? I completely can't move. Watch this. See this? That's what you're fighting against. You turn into an absolute slug when you try to go on any stairs. Like, anything of any elevation is really difficult. And then this guy has a gun, so I run away to bait him closer, to make him waste some shots. The weapons in this game are hit scan, so if it flashes and you're on screen, you will take damage. You have to get really lucky. And I'm just going to try and bait a few more shots here, keep on saving so that I can make him waste the rounds, and then I'm going to bum rush him and hopefully he won't hit me. And right now, he misses again, and I kill him. It won't always happen like that, folks, but you know that. You've played this game. But there's the interruption on the surprise attack. We whack her in the face. She's having a rough day. She's about to get executed, but be careful executing when someone's in the vicinity because you are not invincible and they will beat the shit out of you while you do it. But the music in this game is so good as well because it's so minimalistic and it's so drony. It always gives you that sense of building tension, and every so often it has a bit of a musical stinger. They're not too cheap, most of them. They just kind of keep in line with the game. And then it leads to just this wonderful sense of claustrophobia, and it's... There's a closeness that this game achieves that you just don't see. And you know when people say things like, oh, Outlast is a really, really awesome game and a really scary game, all I felt when I played Outlast was, oh, whoa, they really liked Condemned. They just took out the fighting. because there's so much similarity and commonality in these games, and I just think Condemned is better in every way. And no one remembers this game. This game came out in 2005, guys, and look at it. It's still beautiful. It's beautiful, it's violent, it's got so much detail in it. It's got one of the best combat systems in a first-person game I've ever played. And it just... there's something about it, dude. It really... I can't say enough kind things towards this game, and I'm so happy to finally bring it to the channel. Sadly, my favourite Condemned is actually Condemned 2, even though it is a much worse game. But that game is currently completely locked on console, and there's no way to play it. There's no PC port, there's no remaster, there's no real hope for it either, because it wasn't a very successful game. And I'm currently downloading an ISO for it to try it on the 360 emulator, and it's taking like 200 years because it's... I don't even know why it's taking so long, but it's taking a long time. And hopefully, folks, if I can get it to work, I will cover that game. It might not be directly after this, but you will see it in time, because I love Condemned 2. Condemned 2 is such a special game. And we all can agree, guys, if you come off Condemned 1 going to 2, it is batshit crazy. It is just ridiculous. It goes 0 to 1,000,000 in about 45 seconds, and it really loses a lot of what made the first game so special. But it's definitely interesting in what it turns into. That guy was doing some kind of grounded finisher, wasn't he? I wish we could do that. You know, when you think about the combat in this game, they could easily add to it in some minor methods that would make it so much stronger. And then, of course, in Condemned 2, they added a ton of cool stuff. But a couple of the things I was thinking about was, I wonder why they didn't go with any kind of knives or stabbing weapons, thrusting weapons. Later on, you do have the opportunity to find a meat cleaver, and it's one of the fastest weapons in the game and one of the best weapons too. But you don't really see it, and if you think about it, the thrusting and the slashing weapons, they could have been really good at a certain damage type and doing a certain thing, but then really bad at something else. And that's where the blunt stuff could have been strong, you know. They could have had maybe not as much stun, but they did either a bleed status or some kind of big damage, or maybe debilitating damage, which affected movement. They could have done a lot of things, and then instead of having a block, because you can't really block with a knife, you don't really do that, do you? They could have had a dodge or some kind of weave. And you see the enemies do it all the time. When you swing at some enemies, they lean backwards, and you can't hit them. You could have had access to that, like Cody from Street Fighter. That would have been super sick, right? And then this is my favourite level in the game, guys. This is it Burnside Alley? This is just absolute slugfest, haymaker swinging for the fences, just sheer annihilation and brutality, and I love it. And be careful if you go near that wall over there, it triggers a spawn where a guy grabs you through the wall, this guy here. And it's really cool and dynamic if you've not seen it, but I didn't want to get grabbed, so I didn't put it in the walkthrough. As this guy parries me with some rebar, looking like he's just come out of the Last of Us bloody Factions multiplayer. But if you think about it, the knives would have been really, really cool and really violent. Maybe it was a violent thing. Oh, here's a shotgunner as well. If this guy hits you, dude, it's just a dice roll. That's a really, really bad sequence, that. And I don't even get to execute him because the detection when I was changing weapons didn't give it me. So that's kind of frustrating. But this is probably one of the most difficult fights in the game. It is a big brawl against multiple assailants. So once you attack the first two guys, this guy drops down. He has rebar too. Rebar hurts, so don't get hit by it. And just then you hear the spawn to my right, because this guy won't die. Two guys. And then when these two guys go down, there's a guy on the left that drops down as well. So we've got 3 dudes right now attacking everyone. It's a bloody battle royale. WrestleMania. And then when this guy goes down, I think there's another guy on the left who has a sign. So watch out for him. And then once you kill this dude, there's a guy on a balcony with a gun that turns up, and then 2 more guys attack you. And then once you've done that, you've done it. But just be really careful here. I'm going to hug this wall so I can't get shot. And that guy's just going to hit scan the shit out of everybody. And boom, see him just wrecking him. Guy's got a good chin on him, taking that shell to the chest. And he still has time to parry me after he gets buckshot in his mouth. There's one guy just here, and the guy above us on that fire escape is the dude with the gun. And these staircases, they're going to cock block my movement, so there's nothing I can really do. Well, look at this, look at my movement. It's really bad. But once you hit this dumpster, it goes into an on-rail sequence, and there's 2 enemies to kill. The first one goes down in 1 hit if you catch him when he's moving, And then the second one, when he gets on, you're going to have to block a couple times, because if you don't, he'll just whack you. I do think the game could have done with a few more sequences like this, because I think this is really creative and really awesome. And just think of what you could do with these on-rail moments while you're fighting. I love this. This makes my imagination run wild with what they could have done, because it's so fucking awesome. And now we're in the library, picking up a paper cutter that looks like an absolutely monstrous guillotine. And this is another one of those random Oro moments where you get attacked by a jebaited phantom. And these phantoms can hurt you, so make sure you fight back. It might just be a novelty moment and they might disappear, but they do hurt. So be very careful. But think about the combat, you know? One of the things I would have loved to have seen is I would have loved to have seen an ability to go low. It would have been nice if they mixed up the attacks between high and low, and the parry could have had a high parry and a low parry, and that way it would have just added that extra element of offense and defense and making it a little bit more complicated, but a lot more satisfying and way more diverse. And for the leg block, you could have done like a leg check that you do to leg kicks in kickboxing. That would have been so sick, just checking something and stunning somebody and then wrecking them. Now this guy's got a gun, so disarm him and then jack him up if you can. See you later, friend. I might pick his gun up as well. Whenever you see me pick guns up, guys, it's either because we haven't seen them in the walkthrough or because someone else has a gun and I need to deal with them because they're a nightmare. So just bear that in mind too. And I love this level with the stacks and just the big looming space and the shadows and the light and then the axe guy that you need to take the axe to open the door. That's another thing. The axes and the sledgehammers and the shovels, they're just keys. Condemned turned its central core mechanic of melee combat and violence into puzzle solving. And it's such a simple thing, but I love it so much. Picking up an axe so you can break a door. That is literally taking a dungeon key in Zelda and going to the door and the lock goes away. It seems so simple and so obvious, but it's so elegant in how they've changed it. They change it ever so slightly. It's new, it's fresh, it's awesome. And I think that's one of the things that video games are really losing now. We've got all this scale, all these player counts, all these bullshit trailers, but we just don't have these moments of just wonder. When you pull a pipe off a wall, and that wall starts sparking, and it makes that wonderful piece of audio, and you now have a weapon, there's a wonderful feeling of just complete cohesion to what that game is. And this is a lot of guns here, guys, so it's just RNG. That guy tried to grab me too. I don't know how I'm not getting shot. It's just, it took a couple attempts, you know, and this is the one where I didn't get shot, but you gotta be careful. I'm gonna shoot this guy just because I hate the guns. It must be said though, ladies and gentlemen, what they did to the guns in the second game was awful. They turned that game into way more of a shooter and it just ruined all the elegance of the guns in this. When the guns turn up in Condemned 1, they mean something, they matter, and there's a palpable sense of power. In the second game, you're just playing fucking COD, and it really irritates me. That guy has a hunting shotgun as well, the sawn-off one. Ooh, this is interesting. This fight cannot be done without a gun, because you have to take damage. So fighting Rosa there with a melee weapon, you parry her for an eternity, you whack her, nothing happens, she has to hit you. The only way to get through it without taking damage is to shoot. And I don't really agree with that, but that's what you're dealing with. And then moving through this zone, the burnt 2x4 is one of the weakest weapons in the game, apparently. Doesn't matter because these enemies die in one hit, so just kick them all. And you'll notice as well, if you've seen my Fear 2 walkthrough, that this enemy is essentially a prototype for that crack addict that's in that game that's really fast and really mobile and just climbs everywhere and jumps on you. I feel like these dudes were the precursor. These were the grandfathers to that enemy. And if you don't realise, ladies and gentlemen, Monolith made Fear as well as this game, so it's the same company. Back when Monolith made some of the best shooters on the market, and I would be lying if I didn't tell you guys, I wish that they'd stop making Wonder Woman games and Mordor games and go back to some shooters, because I simply don't think anybody put the kind of love or attention into shooters that they did. You know, it's a lot like the company Remedy. Remedy committed to the single-player games and just they were dripping with love and innovation and doing things their own way. And Monolith did the same thing. And it's not to say that Mordor and that Wonder Woman game aren't good and aren't going to be good, but they're not this. You know, they're not Blood, they're not Fear, they're not No One Lives Forever. They've got such a portfolio that people probably haven't even heard of, which is tragic. AVP, you know. All these great games. But I'm doing my part by advertising this, and hopefully you're watching this and you're looking at this and thinking, how have I not heard of this game? How cool is this game? And people have played things like Dying Light now, and Dying Light is... See that just then? How did that not hit me? That's one of those moments where I honestly couldn't answer it, guys. I've been hit by dudes 50 feet away with the smallest weapons, but just then, he whiffs. And I think it's because the paper cutter, while it does have decent speed and good damage, really good damage, it has bad range. It still doesn't make a lot of sense. But can you imagine if they made a Condemned 3? Think about it, guys, with the destruction and with the violence, just the engine now. You could be doing all kinds of horrendous destruction to these opponents. Just the visuals of it, it'd probably get banned. You know, think about stuff like Soldiers of Fortune 2 back in the day with, what was it, 36 different dismemberments? You could have done so much insanity. Think about when you hit people and what it would do to their models, like on Doom Eternal when you damage the enemies and the chunks of them fall off and it gets really, really, you know, fucked up. And in that game it's kind of cartoony, whereas this is kind of realistic. It's kind of full on, you know. It's quite disturbing. You're smacking these freaks and these, I don't even know what they are, you know, some kind of circus gimps. It's crazy when you think about it. But just being able to see that damage translated from what you're doing, the impacts, I think it would be a game that would shock. It would be up there with Manhunt, you know, just for the, Jesus Christ, this is brutal. And we throw that word around a lot, don't we, this notion of brutality. It's brutal, but most games really aren't. And then every so often you play something and it's really evocative, it's affecting. And coming back to this game too, when I was doing these fights, guys, I was giddy. Just the feeling of crunching and connecting and really getting in there. And when you get hit too, when you get hit, you're flinching and stuff. There's this wonderful primal factor to playing this kind of a shooter. And it's an absolute pleasure. You might also notice, guys, there's some stuttering happening. I've gone in here and done my best to remove a lot of it. The game hitches a lot on PC. It hitches when you're doing execution. Sometimes it hitches during fighting. Sometimes it just hitches when you're moving. And it looks like weird shit's happening, but I can assure you guys it's just oddities of the PC version. But look how many dudes there is here, just random dudes. It's all kicking off. Guy's on his knees, gonna... Oh, this is a bad idea. I got lucky then. There's a guy to my right, I think he has a gun, you know. Yeah, he does. That guy has a gun. He just went and picked a weapon up though. Huh, maybe his gun was empty. Which is another cool aspect about Condemned. So, I don't even have to mention the AI. You're watching it, you've seen what they do. The AI in this game does not just zerg rush you. They don't just run mindlessly to you to get slaughtered. They will hide. They will kite. They will try to ambush. They'll go pick up weapons. They'll go move into better, more advantageous positions. They'll go for a gun if there's one on the floor. You can drop a gun and they will go and pick it up. And I know that's... People take this for granted now because you see it in a lot of things. But in 2005, guys, this was emergent technology. Oh, and this bit right here, I wanted to get a kill with this gun, but I didn't want to shoot. So I just swagged on this dude by kicking him away, wasting the clip, and then beating him to death with a gun. And then this introduces another beautiful detail. The more you attack with a weapon, when it's a gun, the more the weapon breaks and the more the model deconstructs. It's such a cool detail in a game full of cool details. There's a dirty trap here, so watch out for this guy. That guy sucks. And then we get the boss fight against the Butcher. So 2 enemies are going to come on meat hooks, so beat them up. And now you get to take on one of the bigger, beefier enemies in the game. And this enemy is using a meat cleaver, which is a really, really cool weapon. You can kite her around the middle table here, but if you do that, why even play the fucking game? Get in there, do some blocking, do some weaving, do some spacing, do some counter hits. It's God Hand again. Get in there, do some damage. Drag and kick her ass into the Milky Way. And try and aim for the head too. If you can aim for the head, you'll be laughing because it does so much damage. And apparently the calculation on head damage is essentially double. So if you can hit them right in the dome, you'll be loving it. This guy here, this is the hardest enemy in the game. This man, I don't know what is up his ass. I don't know where he came from, but I don't like him. That dude, you will never understand how many times that guy beat my ass. That guy is the Maradona of fucking homeless, like weird looking Cenobite trash men. He's just too strong. And if you want to carry this cleaver into this fight, guys, if you go back after hitting the door with the axe, you can pick it up from where you dropped it in that butcher area, and then you can carry it for the rest of the level, and this weapon is awesome. It is really fast, it's high damage, it's got almost no downside except for its reach. And then once you kill that guy, I'm going to pick up this gun, because there's unfortunately 2 guys with guns here, and we haven't got a kill with this just yet, so you're going to see me try and kill the guys. There's one guy on the balcony there. Boom, he's dead. And then there's one guy over there. Boom, he's dead. And that's the end of the fight. I like this fight a lot. I like all the fights in Condemned where there's multiple enemies, where you can really get stuck in. And if it's too hard for you guys, just save more. If you're enjoying it, just rely on what they give you and see what you can do. And just have a good time, because this is... There's a mode in Condemned 2 where you essentially fight homeless people, and you can build a score multiplier and stuff, because they've added a combo system in that game, and it's really, really fun. I wish this game had something similar, or some kind of mod with that, so I could just get into a good environment and they throw infinite enemies at me, and I would just fight. Because I love the fighting in this game, dude. When you're in it, it's such a dance, it just feels like a ballet. This is a really long fight too, this one. You're going to get attacked by a ton of the one-kick wonders. And because this is an incline, see my movement? I can't move right. So I'm complete potatoed when it comes to my speed here. And it's a massive disadvantage, but luckily these guys are so weak, it doesn't really matter. And all you do to end this sequence, guys, is you walk to the top of the area once you've killed everybody, and it will teleport you out of this nightmare. You're not going to see me do that because the editing's so all over the place, but once you've done that, there's only one more guy left in the enemy, and it's this man. This guy's kind of interesting too. He's covered in bin liners and he's collecting things. And then it pushes on to the second to final level of the game, the Appleseed cabin. When you go into the basement here, as you're finding these 4 clues, be careful because they send the crawlers after you. And these dudes, if you have your investigative tool on the screen, you might not have the time to take it off and whack them, because for some reason it takes forever for Ethan to swap between his forensic tools and his weapons. And because this level is so short and it doesn't have much combat, I am going to show you where the different riddles are, just in case you get lost. But once again, guys, this is meant to be just all combat all the time. This is just a rare deviation. And then as you see it, this is me getting ambushed. See this? As you're looking for them down here, be careful. This is the only part of the house where you do get physically attacked on this part. And if you're wondering what the bodies are doing, guys, all the flipping around, it's because I'm playing on 200 FPS. When you play this game on high frame rates, the physics goes nuts. It's the reason why the collision is so goofy, and the bodies with the ragdolls, they just go crazy. Same thing happened in Dead Space 2, it happens in Dead Space 1. It happens with all these games when you really crank the frames. But the final piece I'm going to be going for is up in the attic, I think. And when you go to the attic, you're going to get attacked by one of the dark followers. This guy here is using the Kali sticks, and he's got all kinds of crazy moves and spins, and there's this weird effect going on the screen. But he's not too bad. The biggest problem with him is he hits multiple times, and he's really good at counter-attacking. But once you get rid of him, you'll be dropping down for the final clue piece, and then it leads you to the piano sequence and the gauntlet to get the axe. And the sequence coming up is really frustrating because the spawns are super fair and really spaced, but it leads to a lot of tedium. So I wanted to do this entire fight coming up, guys, on one checkpoint, no quick saving, but it took so long that every time I made a mistake, I had to wait for the spawns, and it takes them ages to get in the house. It's kind of weird, actually, because if you look out the windows, you can see this, you can see the garden, you can see the fog, and you can see the trees in the distance. You see the enemies jump over the fence and run to the house. They don't just imaginary spawn, they don't just teleport in and phase in. They run all the way from the edge of the land into the house, and it's really cool when you think about it, but it takes ages, and there's about 7 spawns. So instead I ended up saving because I was getting so annoyed with it. This guy here is called a farmhand, I know that for certain, because you can see on his outfit, his overalls, it says he's got the Appleseed Company, which is the name of the land that we're on. But if you watch, I'm waiting for these guys to climb in, and if you attack them as they jump through the window, it's a one-hit kill. If you don't, it's a normal fight. And the idea here is, every so often, enemies come from different windows, and it's an increasing amount of enemies up until the point one of the enemies will come with a fire axe. And once you get the fire axe, you can break the piano, go up the stairs, and then you can proceed to take on the boss fight with Serial Killer X. But can you see him in the distance? You can see him there, right? This is how long it takes him to get to you. Every single spawn that comes in through a window does what this guy does. He climbs over that wall, he runs all the way this way, and then he jumps through the window. I love the fact they made it that way, but it doesn't flow. This should be frenetic. This should be intense. You should have spawns up the arse. I'd love if all 8 enemies were in the house at the same time, and it gave me a nice checkpoint. Fight 8 guys in a row, Chris, in the same room. I'd love that. That, to me, is the kind of stuff I live for. But instead, you're sitting around waiting on these dickheads. This guy can come through either window, too. He either comes through this window, or the one closest to you on the right. And if you go to one, he tends to go to the other, so you don't generally get an opportunity to stop him. And then it's just me spawn killing the rest of them through the windows. But can you hear the audio, guys? If you've got a good headset when you play this game, the audio is phenomenal. The sounds of the hits, phenomenal. The sounds of you dropping things and picking things up, phenomenal. Everything about the audio is top tier. We're going to try and kick this guy. There it was, see? The kick's really good at stopping that. And then this guy has a shovel. We don't need a shovel, we need him. He has the axe. That's the final guy. And then here is the transition to the fight with SKX. So I'm going to swap the fire poker for the Kali stick because it does more damage. And then I'm going to... I intentionally dropped that stick upstairs, swapping out the sledgehammer, so that I could use it for the boss fight, if you're wondering, guys. Because it starts you with a fire poker. The fire poker is plenty good enough, it's very good. And then he's going to attack us when we're on this balcony. This is where it always seems to kick off, and I tried to wait for him here, but he's running around and playing hide and seek, and because the filter on the screen is so aggressive, I don't really want to mess with it too much, so I kind of wait for him, and I don't know how this works. I'm not a speedrunner guy. I know that you chase him around the house. I don't know if there's a super easy way of manipulating him, but he's going to come for me in a moment, and when he does, right there, boom, now we fight. And he's just like a standard guy. He's just really tanky, and he's really aggressive. So just stay on him, stay hitting him, make sure that you can space his hits like just then. That was really close. And then eventually you'll hit him and you'll get hit yourself because it knocks you away, but you don't take damage. And then it will transition to the final level. The parry window is quite fun too because it's still active even after you've done it for a couple seconds, so you can get a lot of late parries if your timing's sloppy. And then now we've got the Hills Have Eyes, the final level of the game, and the hardest level in the game too. So this creature is certainly something. DSP said he reminded him of the guy from Toxic Avengers, and I totally see that. He does look a little bit like Nemesis and Toxic Avenger guy and a few other dudes. Looks a little bit like Sloth from Goonies. But on this bridge, there's going to be 4 spawns. That guy, and then another spawn from each of those positions, and then the big creature's going to attack you afterwards, and that's the end of this particular sequence. That guy gets killed by him, that's not the end of the world. And then we're using the burnt 2x4, which the burnt 2x4 is one of the best weapons in the game. For the speed of it and the damage of it, it is, I think the only weapon stronger than it is the fire axe. But the fire axe is incredibly slow, so... And then moving on, you press a button, it opens up a lift, and then these 2 guys attack you, so we're going to beat the shit out of them. And if you can get them attacking each other, they're going to do the work for you. Like, look at this game, dude. How cool is this game? Can you imagine if they could somehow make the moveset and the attacks the same sweet it is in Condemned 2? If we could go back to Condemned 1 and add Condemned 2's combat systems, oh my god, guys. Endless game. And then once you kill him, there's another spawn of one of the big dudes here. He takes a while to get to you, but he's surprisingly agile for such a big man. And the enemy's full of these enemies too. They're incredibly tough. Every so often you will hit them in the face and do a really good crit and take them down quickly, but there's no way to repeat it consistently, seemingly. And then this section here in the orchard, once you kick about 4 of these guys, you're going to get attacked by another one of those Oro Dark followers. He's here. And... just be careful of his counters. He loves to counter, but his range is limited, so use that to your advantage. Here he comes. Boom. Can you imagine if the kick had command normals as well? If you could do like a left kick, a right kick, a forward and back, and they were all different kicks. One of them could be slower, one could be faster. Oh, it'd be so sick. And then we have another one of these big dudes. I've traded out the flaming 2x4 for the stick. I don't think it's stronger though. I wanted to test to see which one felt better, and I honestly believe the other one is better. Not that it matters, both of these weapons are very good. And then after we kill this guy, it's the hardest fight in the game. And I really wanted to do it without saving at any part of it, but then the mobility is so bad thanks to this version of the game, so it was really, really shitty. This is 2 guys with guns, by the way. I'm going to kill the first guy, and I'm going to try and bum rush the second guy if I can. I could have shot them both, but I really didn't want to do that, folks. So many videos of Condemned on YouTube have people tasing everybody and shooting everybody, and I just didn't want this to be that. I wanted to show you what this game can be, and this game can be so intense and just so violent. It's a lot of fun. And here we have it. This is the big boy coming up, the big fight. I took that guy's gun, by the way, so I could whoop this dude with him. I do not recommend using this weapon as a melee attack. It's very weak, and these enemies are very strong, so it takes a while to hit him with it. But the whole point of this is just to use as many weapons as possible and do what I can. And here we have it, guys. Look at my movement. See this movement on those steps? It is appallingly bad. But I'm going to attack this guy. I shoot him, and then I immediately swap back to the weapon. Once you've done that, there's at least 3 more enemies trying to come for you. There's 2 in front, and then 1 behind. And what you can do is, you can rush down into this corner, get the 2 guys to come towards you, and if you do this correctly, they'll attack each other, and you have your back against a wall, so you can just defend, and they'll beat each other up while you beat them up. And it funnels them all into this wonderful just impact zone. And if this had just been flat ground and I could move normally, I would have been absolutely fine. But you can't run away. And when you can't run away, you've got to stand your ground. I remember playing this on the 360 for the first time, and I remember this level being so dark. But then I play it on PC and it looks really bright by contrast. I don't know what's different there. I don't know if it was the CRT I was on, or if my memories are just different. Or maybe I didn't carry the torch for the full duration, but it was unbelievably dark. Oh, and this is just a little bit of a bonus. I wanted to show you what the Dark Followers are like when you shoot them. You kill them so quickly with guns, it's kind of a joke. And then here we have it, ladies and gentlemen, the final boss, the Hate. Some people call this guy the Dark Primary. The Oro Dark Primary, which is his name in the second game, I believe. But in this game, this guy is called the Hate. And I just think that name is awesome. So this is a brutal gauntlet of fights, and you can learn the spawns. If you attack these guys as they're dropping in, it is a one-hit kill on most of them. These normal dudes that die in one hit, they're just the same. This is the farmhand. He's really, really good, this guy. He hit me a bunch. But one of those creatures comes in behind, and there's a creature with a sign on the left. Be very careful of the creature with a sign. He does all of these really weird mix-up attacks. He can run and smash it on you. He can do an overhead thing, and sometimes he's way faster than he looks. But once you kill these 2 dudes, the boss is going to drop down. And when the boss drops down, I recommend quick saving, because if you don't, you have to do all of those fights again just to get to him. And it's really frustrating when you're trying to do no damage. You can bring a gun to this fight if you want to. I've seen somebody shoot people in this area. I don't know if the gun is in this room or what's going on there, but I saw a speedrunner shoot everybody on this sequence, and I wasn't doing that. But here he is, this is it. So the idea here is this guy has a sword, and he's the same as one of those other guys with the sticks. He's got tons of movesets, he's got all kinds of fancy bullshit, he counters really quickly, he's got a really dangerous running attack. But if you whack him, eventually he turns away like this, and then you can rip his augments out. And the first time I hit him then and he turned away from me, I could have pulled them out, but I wanted to hit him a few more times because I really like whacking this dude. And fun fact as well, when I first got to this guy, I hit him about 100 times thinking I'd got some crazy loop and thinking he had a really, really high HP pool, and it turns out you can't kill him unless you do those QTEs. And this is the exact same, this is the second phase. So, attack him, you'll notice I'm parrying after I attack. That's to stop his really quick counterattack, because this guy counterattacks so quickly, and that option select is as good as it gets. So knock him down, rip out more of his scaffolding here, and then it will transition to the final fight where you're in the dreamy nightmare with him, and this is his final phase as well, where he's all super fucked up and it's all black and white and he's jumping, attacking and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and just Just beat the shit out of him. This is it. This is what it's all been for right here. Just keep smashing him and smashing him, and right now he's getting a bit stunned there. He's twirled. That was the fast one. See it when he spins around like that? It's got so much range that it hits you out of nothing, and now you can kill him. All of this, I think, is just, there's no need for this. This is like somebody stopped the match. He's broken in half. You know, this is Mankind versus The Rock. I quit, and I'm not quitting. I'm never quitting. Take the steel, bitch. And then I'm gonna break his jaw. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. This is a very special game for me. You take care now.